fire zone. The purpose of this humanitarian team would be to, first of all, monitor the situation and support humanitarian assistance and try to do whatever we can to protect the civilian population.
And still, refugees are streaming into army-controlled areas. The medical charity Doctors Without Borders says many have arrived with untreated mine, blast and gunshot wounds. The Sri Lankan government says more than 100,000 have escaped since Monday, though it's impossible to verify that figure.
We want to see that the civilians who have fled the LTT are given the maximum care, protection and their facilitation in terms of a humanitarian need. We want to improve the conditions for the civilians.
But the UN says promised access to the civilians has yet to be granted. The government saying it's dependent on the security situation. Rowan Bridge, Al Jazeera.
Well, our correspondent David Chater is on the very edge of the no-fire zone where the fighting is raging. He's just brought this very latest news from the front lines.
We've been travelling at speed for more than an hour now on Colombo, being south from Kilinochchi. It's like a captured January. We're getting closer and closer to the no-fire zone where the army has been pushing the Tamil rebels. Every village we've passed has been in a terrible state of devastation. The palm trees have had coconut groves have been decapitated from heavy shelling. The churches have been ripped with holes. There are no civilians at all in this area. All the villages are empty, left only with starving dogs picking through the ruins. There are signs of tiger defences along the way, slip trenches and bunkers which have been blown open again by obviously heavy shelling. So you can see the intensity of the fight that has taken the Sri Lankan government troops to push the Tamil Tigers back into what is now called the no-fire zone. We're only a few kilometres away from it at the moment, and apparently the fighting is still going on. It's still very, very strong. The Tamil Tigers, those to the left, are now cornered in the southern section of that no-fire zone. The Sri Lankan Army is attempting a complete encirclement. We've just seen one party of civilians who were coming out of the no-fire zone. They were in the usual state, very dehydrated, very shocked, but we didn't have time to hang about and talk to them, so we're heading towards the no-fire zone.
And of course we'll bring you any further reports from David Chater as he goes into the no-fire zone itself as soon as we can. But on the line now, James Elder, who's a spokesman for the United Nations Children's Fund. He joins me on the line from Sri Lanka's capital, Colombo. James Elder, can you give us more detail about what we're hearing is a huge gap between the needs of the people who are emerging from this so-called no-fire zone and the actual capacity of authorities to meet them?
Well, of course, as your correspondent said, these people have been through a hellish situation, not just over the past days, but over months. They've been living in a situation where there's been grave shortages of food, of water, of basic medicines, and yes, they've been caught in the middle of military fire. Those people now who have fled, and it is a very high number, many of them are making their ways towards camps. That is good news that they're now accessible. Organisations like UNICEF are in those camps. We're treating malnourished children. We're providing an enormous amount of water, sanitation, ensuring sick children get to hospital, all of those things. But yes, there is a gap between the needs and what can currently be done. We're looking at the moment at the number of people in camps doubling to more than 100,000 in the last few days. It may triple or quadruple in the next week. It's why organisations like UNICEF are urgently appealing for $5 million so that we can ensure these children who have been through unspeakable situations now are given some respite, given some care. The worst thing that could happen now is for people who have survived the war to then die of preventable means in the camps. UNICEF is doing everything we possibly can to ensure these children now get a moment of respite from what has been a horrendous ordeal and still is a horrendous ordeal to tens of thousands of people who remain trapped in that area that your correspondent talked about.
Right. We've just heard the United Nations Secretary General, Ban Ki-moon, saying that he's going to send a team of humanitarian experts into the region. But what good could that possibly do, given the conditions that you've just described?
Well, I think the most important thing at the moment, and something the Secretary General and UNICEF have been calling for days, weeks, months, is two critical elements. The first one is that the LTTE, the Tamil Tigers, must allow those people who want to leave to leave. It's clear in cases that this has not been happening. People have been forcibly held for labour. Children have been forcibly held to recruit. People need to be able to leave that area if they can. The second one that is also very important at this moment is that the government needs to exercise maximum restraint in its operations and avoid the very term that the Secretary-General used, which was a bloodbath. Essentially, both sides need to pause at this moment and do absolutely everything they can for tens of thousands of civilians who are in a desperate situation, perilous situation. And really, this is the moment for both groups to ensure that solutions are sought, not just to win this war, but to win this peace.
James Elder, spokesman for UNICEF in Colombo, thank you.